Oh, here
We
you go.
are.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It is 8:32, and it is the Seattle Schools Traffic Safety Committee. Just a quick rundown. Love to know who we have here today. I'm Noah. I'm the committee chair. So you're next on my screen. Passing it to you.
Sarah Colleen, SDOT Safe Routes to School Program Manager. I can pass it to Diane.
Hi, everyone. Diane Walsh with SDOT. I'm the SDOT liaison. And I will pass it on to Dan Anderson.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Anderson from SDOT, and I'm a communications manager right now working on the levy. So that's what I'm here to present about. And I will pass it on to, let me look at the screen here. Oh, shoot, I can't see the names on the way my teams just did. Does someone mind just stepping up? Sorry.
You can pass it on to Kelsey.
Thanks, Kelsey. Thanks,
Hi, I'm Kelsey Rote. I forget what they call it, one of the random members. I don't work at SDOT or any of the places where I know there's a name for that, but I've volunteer committee member, community member. And I also work at the Governor's Office of Financial Management on the K through 12 capital budget. So it's sort of related to my work as well, but just not officially. And I'll pass it to Ryan, who's the other sort of recent joinee.
Hi, I'm Ryan Baum. I'm a community member volunteer on the commission. And I'm also having name trouble. Margaret has not introduced herself yet.
I'm Margaret McCauley, another volunteer member of the committee, parent of many public school children who I'm trying to get off out the door right now. And I joined a little late, so I'm not sure, but
Good morning. Gary,
Gary go?
I can
perfect.
go.
Gary.
This is Marnie Campbell from Seattle Public Schools, Executive Director of Operations.
Okay, and I am Gary Davenport with the Seattle Police Department.
And I'm Brooke Nelson, and I'm the Safe Routes Coordinator with Seattle Public Schools.
And also with Seattle Public Schools, I'm Stephen Richard, Director of Transportation.
I'm Marilyn Furman. I have a camera problem, but I'm the public member of the committee and secretary.
Marilyn, it looks like your video or your camera is just obstructed because we can see part of you. Do you want to just try to manually move the lens?
I don't know how to do that. I've been trying to uncover it.
Sometimes you can just shake your computer, actually.
you're not alone, Marilyn. This happens a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if there's some way to have a black thumb with technology, I definitely have it.
I don't know if you've got a Mac, but I've been having this issue where my computer suggests that I use my phone camera, and it has taken me a while to realize I have to say no to that every time. So if that's relevant or not.
Well, you don't need to see me. I've just assumed that I'm much more beautiful than I really am, and you can hear my voice.
Mary Ellen,
Mary Ellen Russell. I'm a volunteer member. And I just want to say I'm excited after the cutoff this week to see that the bill to fund school transportation fully is still alive. And so is the bill to expand the pool of people who can review automated traffic tickets. So both still alive.
Fred, you want to go?
Hello, sorry. My name's Fred. I'm the Safe Routes to School intern with SDOT.
And I believe we have Director Greg Spott on the line with us.
I thought I was one of the honorary random members. Good morning, everybody. Greg Spott, SDOT Director, calling in from Los Angeles.
Hopefully it's nice and lovely and sunny.
Very.
It was snowy and icy here. So you miss a lot. Is there anybody here for public comments? Okay. And if not, since we have both Director Spatz and Dan online, would you like to start a little bit early?
Sure. Well, good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure to join you again. Last time when I joined you, there was an item coming up about schools that are having safety issues because they're near freeway on-ramps or off-ramps, and that resulted in a really meaningful community walk that we followed up with, where we had folks from a variety of different relevant agencies and institutions. So I really enjoyed the collaboration with your group. We're here to talk a little about how now is a great moment to provide input on the next transportation levy. The current levy, the Levy to Move Seattle, was enacted by the voters in 2015, 9-year levy. It provides about a third of our budget at SDOT. This is the last year of collection of taxes for that levy. And we have just spent 2023 and we're spending 2024 getting into construction every one of the remaining projects. We probably have more projects going out to bid of all sorts from maybe October 1st till April 1st of any time in recent history. It's been a really exciting time for us. And we're just now starting to begin shaping what a package could look like. And we want to really invite your input, not only in this meeting, but on your own or as a group to us going forward, and also in various other public forums that will exist as the mayor puts out a draft proposal and then rolls up all that input into making some edits and putting out a final proposal, and then the city council will end up reviewing and amending and adopting, hopefully, that final proposal by June. Before I pass it to my team, I'd just like to share with you a special moment that I had reminding me of the importance of transportation levies to our students and their families. I've been visiting some levy-funded project locations. And a few months ago, I went to Ingram High School. And the south edge of that large campus goes along 130th Street, which is a multi-lane, two-way east-west arterial that connects a lot of people to I-5. And, you know, we showed up in the morning, the sort of drop-off window, and we watched a lot of students get off of a public transportation bus heading eastbound on 130th, and then pressing the button and getting a traffic signal to cross the street to the southwest corner of the campus. And that was a traffic signal that was funded by the Levy to Move Seattle, and it was put in just a few months ago, sometime in 2023. And then we walked the perimeter of the campus to look for other, you know, safety opportunities. The campus is so large, and there's buildings on it like every decade, decades and decades of investment in this wonderful high school campus. And I thought it was profound and worrisome that all of those waves of investment, nobody ever thought about how kids would get onto the campus. You know, the campus kept getting bigger and better, but the environment around the campus wasn't set up for children to arrive safely. And it just struck me how powerful it is to have a funding source where some of it is dedicated to funding safe routes to school, so that beyond seeking competitive grants, you have your own funds to do these things. And I thought it was also just a sign of how much work we still have to do, that we have many important schools that are magnets for people to arrive by transit, biking, and walking, where the perimeter really has not yet been set up for welcoming and safe arrivals by these active transportation modes. So with that, I'd like to pass it to Dan Anderson, who's on a special assignment doing community relations for the next levy. Dan, go ahead.
Thanks, Greg. I'm gonna get my little share set up here. While I'm doing that, I see Francisca Stefan has joined us. Do you want to introduce yourself, Francisca?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Francisca Stefan. I'm Senior Deputy Director here at SDOT, working closely with Dan and Megan Shepard and the dozens and dozens of city staff that are working to try and craft a really meaningful levy looking forward, as well as many people that are currently working to finish out the current Move Seattle levy, which has been done a lot of great things for schools, as well as transit, maintenance, bridges, paving. It is just so much of what makes Seattle a great place. Yesterday, we had an opening ceremony for the Hiawatha Stairs, one of those great incisions into our urban landscape that make it a walkable, bikeable place for people of all ages and abilities. So lots of good stuff, and look forward to talking with you today. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Francisca. Yeah, that staircase and lighting is amazing. Good collaboration with Sound Transit. Can everyone see this screen? I'm trying PowerPoint Live now these days, and it sometimes is okay. It's great. Thank you. So first, I just want to say thank you for being on this committee and volunteering and working with SDOT. I had a nice chance to check in with Diane and Sarah yesterday and talk about how great you all are and all the great work coming out of Safe Routes to School and the collaborations with SPD, SPS, and the community. So my name's Dan. I've been doing transportation safety outreach for a long time at a few different governments. This has been a really fun assignment. I'm also a parent. I have a kindergartner at TOPS K-8. So when you talk about freeways and schools, I see you. And I have a 3-year-old who goes to preschool on MLK Way in Madison Valley. And that pickup and drop off is an experience, and worked with the school and other areas to kind of figure out all these ways these little ones get to and from. And so definitely here with you all as noting this priority. And I know many of us at SDOT have these same experiences. So I'm excited today to talk about this because it's such a big opportunity. Here we go. So for today, we're talking about where we are with levy renewal as part of our funding plan at SDOT. So we try to tailor these presentations to our audience, and we wanted to make sure we touched a bit on our school collaborations with where we're headed. Also put this into perspective that this levy renewal and where we are with funding is a part of a longstanding pattern of funding for SDOT, and also part of a process of many planning efforts and many sources of information and inputs that lead us to how we're going to collect and spend money. And so wanted to talk about that, then get into the specifics on funding, and then close with questions and discussion. Greg, Francisca, and I are excited to be here, and we want to make sure we get any questions answered in real time, but also if you have follow-ups or some questions that stump us, we can follow up with Sarah and Diane and get back to you in writing or in a follow-up meeting. So I love the message of this slide. Levy funding supports Safe Routes to School. So what's nice about our levy is it really supports almost everything at SDOT. So when you support the levy, or when folks tell us they want more funding, we really have an easy job of saying, yes, that supports the thing you like that we do. And it's not true of all funding sources. And part of the reason why is because it's a local property tax levy, and it's basically enabled us to do more. And what's nice about working at SDOT and working with community is folks always want us to do more. That's the main part of our jobs, is talking to community members and community members asking us to do more. And so with a local property tax levy like this, which was created by Seattleites for Seattleites, we get to do that. So as Greg mentioned, it's about a third of our budget. And what we did here is we put this blue box around some of the programs that we think really empower the work this committee and the communities you represent and the kids you represent, and the schools you represent are most interested in. And so the programs in this box, we try to tally it up, and our estimate is we've spent about $223 million with the current levy on these programs. And that's been in the past 8 years. We're in year 9 right now, as mentioned. And that's a lot. And what's incredible about it is we've been able to really work both kind of professionally with data, with our mapping and our inputs to figure out where to do those investments based on city policy and law, but also with folks like you in the community to figure out new and better places to invest sometimes to really make those dollars go further. What's also been nice working on the current levy is it's really been transformative in Seattle's walk, bike, and transit systems. So, for example, I mentioned my kindergartner at Tops. Well, Tops has some great spot improvements around it for the schools. But also what's really exciting is we're breaking ground on Rapid Ride J-Line in Eastlake, right at the edge of the playfield. And that'll empower me as a parent and my kids to get more familiar with the bus system, and I could drop off and then go to work on the bus. What's also great about that project is it's building protected bike lanes on Eastlake. So I can bike from my house in Capitol Hill, and I see Margaret, who we did a bike ride downtown with. I remember when Greg first came aboard to the library with her kids. But I can then bike from my house in Capitol Hill, or my wife can drop the kids off and then bike into downtown on those new protected bike lanes. Very different than Eastlake today. So this slide, we ended up probably doing a few too many words, but what we were trying to say is we have a very, very big pie. We have a comprehensive approach to funding the transportation department. And we have so many plans, policies, needs, wants, both from our electeds, our staff, and our communities, that we're looking at this as comprehensively as possible. And I think Greg's leadership, the mayor's office, has really pushed us to come up with a funding plan to figure out how we can do as much as possible. And part of that is really a subsource, which is the transportation levy. And so what we try to do here is that we have so many different sources of funding. We have local, we have federal, we have state, we have grants. We also have fees at the transportation. We have parking costs, right? So the levy renewal plan that I'm sharing a bit more about today is one piece of our funding plan, which means, as I mentioned, the levy can do a lot, but it doesn't do everything. And so I always try to make a distinction that there's the levy and then there's SDOT. And so the levy is just one piece, but it's very important. And as you'll see in my next slide, it's our biggest piece. So the current levy is called the Levy to Move Seattle, and it is quite large. SDOT, through 18 years of levies that started with Bridging the Gap under Mayor Nichols, really has tried to be responsive to community needs around transportation funding with this levy, and it's grown quite a bit. And so what you see is, oh shoot, can folks hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So what we see with the Move Seattle levy is it's our largest fund. The general fund comes from city central sources. But what's also nice is what we've done here is tried to say that voters, Seattleites, people, are empowering us to do this work. And two of our largest sources now are voter passed measures, which isn't how it used to be in the 90s and before. And so why we're here today is to make sure that folks know this important source of funding is expiring and ask questions as we propose renewing it to do the work we love to do. It's also worth noting here that some of the traditional sources of funding, like gas tax or fines, fees, they really don't make up the large sources, those large slices in our pie like they used to, or some people think they do. It's really property tax, which a lot of folks actually prefer us to do because it's a bit more progressive than things like sales taxes. We put this together because we wanted everyone to know that everything folks have been working on is really feeding into this effort. So what we did on the left was try to list some of the big things we've been doing. Some behind the scenes, some very publicly. I'll start at the upper left with the Seattle Transportation Plan. So, gosh, I think we're 2 years in on the Seattle Transportation Plan, and that's our big plan that feeds the comprehensive plan. And so really looking at what the network needs to be, what's our vision for Seattle's street and right-of-way network, and then think about all the different modes. And then what's been great about the Seattle Transportation Plan is it's comprehensive. It's not siloed into all the modes like we have had before, which can be challenging, especially for the public who are just trying to get one piece of information. So we're really using the amazing equitable engagement that the Seattle Transportation Plan's done over the past few years to feed into this. And that includes our Vision Zero top to bottom review. And we're working on our action plan right now. I know you all know how important Vision Zero policy and thinking is and approaches. So that's very much feeding into this. We also have our climate change response framework. So SDOT and the city are very much engaged on how to be a more climate resilient city, and also acknowledge that greenhouse gas emissions are in many ways here coming from streets and the transportation system and how people get around. We also very much want to be in tandem with Sound Transit and linking up with their growing network. The Hiawatha Staircase that Francisca mentioned is at the new Judkins Park Sound Transit Station. That's actually in collaboration with Sound Transit, but it's also, I believe, right at Thurgood Marshall, right? So you get these kind of, or right by Thurgood Marshall off of the I-90 trail. So you get these nice catchment areas around light rail that can serve many people. Greg mentioned 130th. We're working on that right now to link up to the new Sound Transit Station opening with Linwood Link. We also, of course, in this chart have financial considerations. And then behind the scenes, we've been working on our asset management, which is really trying to figure out all those SDOT assets like retaining walls, bridges, street pavement, sidewalks, drainage, and done what we think is probably the best, most comprehensive, most data intensive analysis of SDOT's system to date. And that's really leading us to make those smart investments so that we're not just chasing the worst first approach of just going after the assets in worst condition, but we can make more strategic interventions early on to get the most bang for your buck, since we know it's your hard-earned dollars. And then finally, all of our work is in service to the transportation equity framework. That really tells us how to engage the communities and to take an equitable approach, which I always say is giving the most to the people who've been given the least. And SDOT's guilty of that historically. We see that with transportation, both in Seattle and across the nation, that we have a lot of work to do to make sure underserved communities get the first bite of the apple when these levies and other spending programs come out. So that leads us into our programs, that leads us in the funding plan. I already mentioned how the levies, but one part of that funding plan. So we are rolling out here in the next couple months a proposal for what this levy will look like in detail. And to get there, like I mentioned, we've been using the existing engagement that's been happening because we don't want to keep going to community groups and orgs again and again asking the same questions. So part of that is working with our levy oversight committee. They are a watchdog for our levy and are set up by the policies that guide us as far as the council ordinance, and they've been great. They push back, they ask questions, they have oversight authority, and at the end of the day, they want us to come back with another levy. They believe in the power of the levy, and they want us to be bold. They want us to really be outcome oriented and figure out how to do these investments even more equitably than the current levy. We've also engaged a third-party firm to do public polling, and we've done 2 polls so far, and the polls are really interesting. Public polling is fascinating to me as a communications manager because we do a lot of surveying and more informal polling, but formal polling that's more scientifically accurate and more statistically significant is always interesting. And what we hear is a majority of Seattleites think that we should spend more on transportation. And I think a lot of folks in this room probably agree with that. And so that tells us our work's important and that we should be proposing a renewal. We then went back to folks and said, okay, you want us to spend more, how much? And we created bookends on that amount. We asked people about 1.2 billion for an 8-year levy and 1.7 billion for an 8-year levy. And we got a lot of support for 1.2. We got a lot of support for 1.7, to be fair. But we also try to put in some real world pushback or folks asking questions. And we saw that 1.7 was a little bit more vulnerable as we talked about it publicly, where people were a little bit more concerned about affordability with a $1.7 billion levy. It's not that it's not doable, but we just saw that there's work to be done if we're to convince taxpayers and voters and the public that this is the right amount at the right time. So that's been interesting data, and it's helped us figure out the amount of money or funding we should propose as we work with the mayor's office. We also asked about priorities, and priorities are pretty typical across these polls. Although transportation is not the highest priority problem area in Seattle, right now that's affordability, homelessness, drug use, crime. Transportation, when folks are asked about priorities, really want us to see us maintaining our streets and bridges. And people love trees. We always say that. People also love safe routes to school. They love the idea of the department really focusing on how to get kids, really get everyone safely to and from where they need to go. So safer streets. Part of our conversations have been safer streets door to door too, that people want to feel safe on the bus and also feel safe crossing the street. So part of what we did beyond this polling is talk to individuals. So we did some great workshops. We just met with our community liaisons from the Department of Neighborhoods who are in communities. They're not city staff. And we had great conversations. Again, safety is very much a top priority. People really want pedestrian safety. Sidewalks is coming up a lot, both to expand the sidewalk network and repair what we've got, and expanding the bike network. People like those all ages and abilities facilities we've been putting in with our levies. We just had a great meeting yesterday. People saying they're seeing those new, what we're calling Toronto style barriers, those a little bit higher concrete barriers like on Dearborn Street. And people are really liking those. And so that's a great cost effective way that we can expand our safety of our network. People really like co-creation. It's something that Greg had us double down on when he got to the department last year, and really figure out how we can co-create projects with the community and also find community sources for projects that it's not always that the department knows best, but that communities know their spaces best and can provide insight into where we should invest. So we've seen a lot of conversations over the past year or so, done some polling, and then done specific meetings like this and others to get even more feedback and share where we are. So we're going to really be working on this stuff, continue our conversation, and then here, let me move to the next slide. So all of that input, all those conversations really helped us align this levy renewal proposal with the Seattle Transportation Plan goals. You see this a lot from SDOT, but we're really sticking to it. Something that this levy's really started focusing on is the maintenance and modernization goal in your lower right screen. It's the idea that we can maintain a street and at the same time modernize it to today's safety standards and really be responsive, like we said, to those inputs about how people can and should get around. One of my favorite projects I got to work on years ago were the streets around Green Lake. And what we did was we paved Green Lake, but in paving Green Lake, we also modernized the streets. I always get this number wrong, but I want to say we put in 250 wheelchair accessible curb ramps. Green Lake Park was not accessible to folks on wheelchairs. And as some on the call know, and myself knows, that means it's difficult with a stroller, right? And obviously you have a lot of people visiting those playgrounds, parks, and then the library across the street. We also put in a two-way protected bike lane around it. And then that empowered us to work with WashDOT and create the outer loop on Aurora, where we actually took a lane, put Jersey barriers in, and created that whole outer loop. And that all came from a paving project. So we see that with a lot of different streets. Thinking in the South End on Swift, Myrtle, Othello, we worked on Columbian, Wilson Ave. Just some examples how the levy can maintain and modernize streets in a way that aligns with these goals. Here's some ways we've tracked a couple of the specific goals based on what we've heard. So one example is investing in safe and sustainable modes. I think that's a really cool photo because it shows the children getting to school with bike bus or with group rides. Is we really want to figure out ways to empower people to make these decisions with the streets supporting them, because we all know that sometimes, you know, streets that haven't been modernized or haven't been on our list, they aren't there yet. And so, like I mentioned earlier with Eastlake, we're trying to get there and investing, you know, over $100 million in that street to really get it to a place where you can make these decisions. These are our guiding principles for the levy renewal, and we've been working with Mayor Harrell and his administration, and then working as a department. I don't know if any folks on the call were at the Martin Luther King Way event we had, where we were talking about how we're doing bike and pedestrian safety on MLK, and the mayor was there, and we had the principal of Franklin High School. It was a great event, and what the mayor really talked about was making sure that folks in Seattle feel safe door to door. And that's really about empowering people, like I mentioned earlier, to live the life they want to live and get to all the places they want to go, and not be concerned about safety. So a more expansive definition of safety than sometimes we have in transportation. We're also committed to well-maintained infrastructure. That includes our bridges, the Ballard, Fremont, and University bridges over the Ship Canal. We all know that SDOT really had to step up when the West Seattle Bridge started cracking, and that took 2.5 years of very intensive work to get it back in good condition. But we were happy to be able to do that, and we want to make sure we do that with all of our other bridges so they stay in a state of good repair. We want the city to be clean and functional, including our streets, sidewalks, and plazas, and then sustainability. We need to be that climate resilient city that Seattle wants to be in its vision. So this led us to what we're calling buckets, as folks who've kind of worked on these processes might have heard before. So we're trying to take all that and figure out where the funding goes once, if we're fortunate enough to get a levy renewal. And so we've put it into these buckets. We're still tweaking them, so we're kind of shopping them around. And it's bridges and structures, maintenance and modernization, as I mentioned, safety. Something new that's really come out of the Seattle Transportation Plan is people streets and public spaces. So really having that neighborhood approach. Something we've been talking about is how people get around very differently, kind of in a post-pandemic city with more work from home, that there's a lot more point-to-point network movement. And downtown is one of our greatest neighborhoods. And so we have this really downtown focused network, but we also want to acknowledge that people are walking up to their business districts for lunch too, as they're working from home or looking for those 15-minute city kinds of connections. Streets That Work really gets into our 24/7 operations capabilities. So that's everything from signal timing to striping, to making sure, you know, we're responsive during snow and ice and all the rest. And then project readiness. This is something that's a really important part of the levy over the years, is doing those key early pieces of design and planning so that we can either get funding in future levies or sources, or go to our federal or state partners for grants. So that's figuring out, like a good example actually is that safety project on Beacon Hill on 15th Ave South. That was a community-led project, and that we were able to get early planning for that. And then that leads us to be able to get grants later to build it. We also want to double down on what the community's asked us to do and refocus SDOT around these goals. So really that community input into neighborhood projects, equity and sustainability as lenses for our project and program selection. The corridor safety and multimodal, again, this really gets to our maintenance and modernization. We're also really excited about projects like our rapid ride projects and our transit focused work and our safety work that includes bike network growth, to really get those big arterials safer and allow people who aren't driving to also get some of the road too. And you're seeing that with our South End bike projects right now, our safety projects, and then those rapid ride and transit corridors. One of the lessons learned from the current levy is we want to be more conservative with our assumptions around leveraging grants and making sure we aren't too committed to outside sources. Just because the public wants us to build these projects, I always say each project has a constituency. And so if we're depending on federal administrations or other partners, there's been just some fluidity there, we all know. And we want to make sure that we're conservative, and then we can under promise, over deliver when we get the chance. And then that flexibility that I think we all realize over an 8 or 9 year period that we just can't predict where the world's going to go, and that we need some flexibility built into these plans and not pretend that everything is predictable as this past 8 years has shown us. So with that, I'm closing up with some of our timeline and next steps, and then we'll open it for Q&A. So we started last year with our Vision Zero top to bottom review. We did all this internal work I mentioned through our asset management plans, and then started pulling the public to figure out where the priorities lie. Continued closing out the Seattle Transportation Plan with that deep equitable engagement around what folks see as the future of Seattle streets and how to do things like People Streets better. Continued our polling to refine how much money people think the transportation funding should grow by, and then where to focus those investments. And then now we're finalizing the Seattle Transportation Plan to go to council soon. And we are trying to come in on a more refined proposal here for the levy. And we're talking to folks like you and others over the next month or so, and then working closely with the mayor's office so that we can launch a very detailed proposal with projects and plans and program spending laid out. We're not quite there yet. We haven't quite landed the plan at that, the plane at that altitude, but we're getting close. And I think over the next few months, you're going to see a lot of action on the levy renewal that you'll really want to sink your teeth into. And we're here to talk it through, answer questions. And our goal is for it to align with the input and the feedback you've been giving us over these years. So we put some questions together. I don't know if folks on the call need question prompts. Sarah and Diane said there's a really great group just for engagement and conversation. These are some prompts. What would you like to see do more of, less of, and what do you think is working well? But really, I just wanted to open it to questions and just say thank you for listening to this presentation and for all your work and service to SDOT.
Thank you, Dan and Francesca. Yes, Mary Ellen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hey, I want to say thank you for the presentation. You know, in regards to your question of what's working well, as you know, someone who's lived in Seattle for 18 years now, there's been a real transformation in what sorts of pedestrian projects and bike-oriented projects are coming online. You know, like you mentioned, I live near the Green Lake, so my kids use that outer loop. It was amazing last summer. My younger, who's a 4th grader this year, had a camp at Woodland Park, and she was able to bike herself completely solo to and from because that outer loop is so safe. So that's been great. My question for you about the levy, you know, you put up that list of things that support safe routes to school and the $223 million from the last one, which is, you know, a little over a third of the total levy dollars. And that's a substantial portion of the levy dollars, and certainly more of a proportion of investment in pedestrian and bike supporting things than we had seen like in my first decade in Seattle. But it's still, you know, when you consider the underinvestment that we've had in non-auto centric infrastructure, it's still not closing that gap. So I'm wondering, as you are looking towards projects for the new levy, how you're deciding what's in the mix, what the proportion is, you know, maintenance of bridges, these are big ticket items, right? So how are we doing that, and also targeting, you know, an appropriate proportion of the money to make up for this lack of non-car infrastructure that we have as a legacy of, you know, decades of decisions?
That's a great question. Francesca, I see you maybe reaching for your button. Did you want to answer?
Very, very astute. Yes, I was. Great. Thank you, Marielle. That's really good question. And I'm really heartened to hear that story about how your kids can ride around the lake. That's awesome. So yeah, we are looking at definitely ways that this levy is going to be continuing the investment in a city that is a great place to move in multiple modes, and particularly with an emphasis on safety. When we talk about safety, we're talking about a really broad definition of safety. And that means to make sure that it doesn't, regardless of the mode that you choose or the modes that you choose, right? Because oftentimes it's multiple in one trip, that we are making sure that we're putting in infrastructure that's facilitating that across the city, while we're also making up for historical inequities and where we've made those improvements, right? So we're being really thoughtful about what are the ways that we can stretch every dollar that we use to make sure that we're putting in place the best known practice today. Because I think what you were hinting at that I love too is that like we can look backwards and see that we've evolved as a city in what we think is good infrastructure, right? Like Sharrows used to be cool. They're not anymore, right? And so now it's now we think about things like audible pedestrian signals, right? Like how can we install those as we move into signal upgrades, and we're maintaining a really, I'm sad to say, like a really pretty degraded signal system. We need battery backups. We need, some sensing for bicycles and pedestrians in more places. Like, what are the ways that when we're in those cabinets that we're automatically putting in, like leading pedestrian intervals, the audible pedestrian signals? How are we doing that every time we open something up? Are we making sure that we're installing those things that make it, start to sort of blanket the city with all of the things that we need to be doing better? So we are, we're looking for a balance. Our need is great in lots of different areas, but our benefits are great with lots of different ways we can use the money, right? A crack seal on a greenway can prevent someone from getting their tire. It makes it nicer to drive. It also prevents you from getting your tire stuck if you've got a linear groove that's wide enough for your bike tire. So what we're doing is making sure that we're thinking about those priority improvements that get more for each dollar spent. And as we're developing this, we'll be able to tell you with more specificity as we draw the through lines, like what the dollar amounts in various areas are. It's a little early still for us to be able to do that, but we're sensitive to the fact that a dollar spent on signals is partly benefiting goods movement, partly benefiting pedestrians, partly benefiting cyclists, partly benefiting transit, and we'll be able to package that and provide you with more information. But we are really looking to make sure that we are using the money wisely to get multiple benefits every time we spend money. So sorry, I can't give you more specificity because I don't have it yet, but I'm happy to bring that back, and we're really aligned in the thinking there.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Any more questions? Marianne, I see on your face that you have another question.
Yeah, well, I'm curious about, how much you end up going for. I am nervous as someone, I work in public projects. I'm a landscape architect. And so I work in, utilities and transportation corridor projects that are like 220 million, and 1 million of that is for the public facing, streetscape space, right? And that's the part that gets cut. So I know that if the budget is tight, the very expensive stuff is not the stuff that gets cut out. It's the stuff that really benefits the people, who are moving through the space, not in cars. So as you're looking at, what you're targeting, I'm wondering both, how do you ensure that no matter what that number is that you target, that we're not putting all the nice to haves in the maybe we don't do it. Mm-hmm. And then also, I don't know, I guess I would just say, it's likely to be a very high turnout year with a more progressive voter makeup than usual because it's a presidential year. So I would encourage you to go big. But as you're targeting in on that number, how are you looking at that, and how are you ensuring that the amount doesn't end up affecting the mix of projects that come out of it? What types of projects are funded in terms of how much of it goes towards non-big ticket legacy auto infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, we are looking at that for sure. We have been doing some really deep work on what our backlog of maintenance is. So I want to, I always want to be clear and transparent with what I know. And I do know that we have looked and we've deferred some base repair on some of our streets to a point now where they have to be reconstructed. And so we're looking to see where are those places where we need to hurry and within the next 2 years, like get to that base before the street completely fails. And then where are the areas where we have the ability to work with the community on a much more transformative project, to do that the right way with engagement, and that the base paving can handle that kind of time. And then we're also thinking about, we have a 20-year vision in the Seattle Transportation Plan, and we have an 8-year levy. So what timing makes sense, right? We know West Seattle link extension is going to be coming right at the tail end, so we need to have some preparedness for that. We know Ballard link extension is going to be a little bit further out, so we want to be thoughtful about making sure we're ready for also some concurrent improvements that are going to be happening. So we're definitely trying to balance all that out, and make sure also we don't, streets, that we're making sure that the infrastructure and the movement on them is balanced, and that we're doing it in a smart, systematic way.
Thank you. Any last closing questions before we need to move on?
Will you guys, I've got one more. Sorry for monopolizing. Just if there's, you talked about how you'd like to hear our voice and also would hope for some support as this is going in front of the public. So we would just encourage you to let us know if there are specific checkpoints or times when an official endorsement from the School Traffic Safety Committee might, be helpful. Please be in touch with us about that. We'll follow the schedule, but you guys know better than we do.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yes,
Yeah, I appreciate
absolutely. And I believe we don't have your PowerPoint deck. If you'd be able to send it to Dan, it'd be much appreciated. We can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Take care.
Bye. Okay, presentation 1 out of 3 today. Done. I believe that the next agenda item is review of the minutes. I know who's sharing their screen, but if you could pull out the minutes. And I apologize for not having the review of December minutes in the minutes that we're going to review now, if that makes sense. Because there is a gap in note-taking. I'm waiting until we're going to have the recording of January meeting. Okay. If we could scroll down to the first action item. Thank you. It was about the letter about a levy. And I'm just going to be completely honest. I was not on top of my game this month. My dad had a heart surgery, so things are a little bit blurry about my, what I read and what I reviewed. Margaret and Brooke, was there a letter to the about the levy, about our priorities? Margaret's face that.
No, I did not track that I was writing a letter about the levy. But it sounds like it isn't passed or isn't totally formulated, so I can save that and do it this way. I was focused on the ones to the state legislature because I knew that timeline was shorter.
The land use update. I'm sorry, what?
This is great. Now, and I can see right here on the screen, it's a subcommittee of me, Brooke, and you. And let's put that on my calendar so it happens this month.
Land use update, Margaret, Marilyn, and myself were to reach out to our council members to express the committee's support in the land use code changes. I'm waiting for information for another project that I need to ping Councilmember Price about before I'm going to reach out about both projects.
I did talk to Kathy Moore, had an appointment at her office, and she's very receptive to everything I talked about. I talked about the departure situation, which she thought was, she was very positive about. I talked about the different things that Margaret sent me as a list of things I should have. I reviewed our agenda, our last year's boy, I hate to, I'm like President Biden. I can't remember words when it comes up. Us 80-year-olds have trouble. but I know what I'm thinking. Anyway, she was quite receptive, and I think she's somebody we can connect with in the future. She's up on laws and so forth.
Great. Margaret, did you?
Report is the word I was looking for. I reviewed all the stuff on the annual report, gave her the address of it, and she seemed quite interested.
Good. That's always nice to hear.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I had Shauna Emery had kind of encouraged me to give it a little more time before doing a blitz on council members. So let's just, keep that going as something to check in on future. I didn't reach out to anybody this month about it.
I got similar informal feedback of, yes, we'd love to talk to you, but my staff is inundated with figuring out what their job is to do right now.
Yeah, for all the new council members. Yeah. I'm sure it's getting their feet under them. Under committee priorities for the year, we talked about drafting a letter about the automated enforcement ticket system. Margaret?
Sorry, I was making a note to contact my new council member. This is the thing I did, as opposed to the other things that I apparently said I was going to do. If it's on my calendar, though, it happens. And this one I did, yes. And thank you, Mary Ellen, for reporting on the status, which I did not do. That's amazing. I think it's really amazing that those are both still live.
Excuse me, I accidentally bumped myself out of the meeting. What was the last report that I missed for the notes?
Did you get the land use code one, or?
No, now we're talking about the automated enforcement tickets.
Right,
The
no, I was
letter.
talking to Maryland, where Maryland, Maryland, did you get the land use code, or?
Right after I quit talking, somehow I bumped myself out. So probably last 2 or 3 minutes I missed Ryan's, what he was saying, and then whatever came after that.
Oh, okay, good. That was land use code. Which is, I was supposed to contact my local council member, and I did not, but it's now on my calendar for this month. Which worked out, because Mary Ellen said that a little lag for the new council members to understand who's doing what is welcome. And then now we're on the state legislature, and they hope that we can get an expanded pool for ticket issuance. And I did write those letters and get folks edits, and so that's great.
Great. Moving through. Okay. I apologize. I did not remember that we're gonna appoint a subcommittee to look at the legislation.
I thought we did, but we don't have recorded who's in it. I don't know. I'm happy to follow that. It's been modified since it was, in process, and now it's moved to the other chamber where it might get modified again. So I'm planning to review it this week, but haven't read it yet.
Okay.
I'll also plan the same. I'll review it this week too.
So
Thank
Margaret
you.
and Kelsey will review it. Are you basically the subcommittee?
Mary Ellen and Chelsea and
Mary
Kelsey.
Ellen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I see how I end up on all the subcommittees.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes pending the amendment of the December reviews?
I so move.
Okay.
I second.
So Margaret made the motion, Mary Ellen seconded. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passed. Thank you so much. SPS updates. Yvonne and Britt.
I can go ahead first. Yeah, so this month was really fun. We built all those bikes. I know that I had mentioned before that we got this big bike donation. School staff were feeling stressed about what to do. And we were able to pull in kind of a good local community effort between folks from the bike bus volunteers in the area. They came in and they shared about their experiences with the bike bus as well as helped us build bikes. We had a volunteer from the bikery who was super crucial, and I'm working on building a relationship with them as they're kind of looking for more community engagement and involvement. They're all volunteer run, so capacity is limited, but they do have a lot of volunteer support right now. So I'm excited about partnering with them more moving forward. We had school staff and a couple of students who helped out, and we were able to build just about all of the bikes. Some folks from the SPS Cycling Affinity group also came down as well. So that was a big highlight. And our Dunlap walk groups are superstars. We started another Dunlap walk group yesterday, which was really well attended. I'll drop some photos in the chat after this. And one of our walk group volunteers is planning events throughout the month. Sarah created a Love Your Route month in February to kind of boost winter walking. And that really took this year at Dunlap. We had a walk lead plan events for each week. And we partnered with Seattle Public Utilities to get supplies for a trash pickup, so Jenny from SPU, she came out and walked with us one day, gave us the supplies. And then 2 weeks later, we had a full group sent out communication to the school, and the full group did a trash pickup on their walk to school, which was a big hit. And the students loved trash grabbers and cleaned up a lot of trash. So that was super fun. And looking forward, I'll be doing some more planning for Bike Month coming up. And as well as just working on deepening my community partnerships. For example, I'll be meeting with someone at the new Broadview Thompson Resource Center next week to see how I could, plug in some of my information there. I've been wanting to build more of a relationship with Broadview Thompson. So I think that could be a good avenue for sharing information and really showing that walk groups are a resource for students who might struggle with attendance or who might struggle with transportation to school. As well as I attended an Rainier Beach Action Coalition community meeting on the Recreating Henderson project. So working on rebuilding a relationship with RBAC and getting plugged in with the bikery as well. So that's what I've been working on. Marilyn, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's the Bikery. What is that official name for the minutes? Bikery?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And where is that is there anything more I should add for the minutes about it?
You could say it's a volunteer bike repair shop. So we had a volunteer mechanic come and help out.
Thank you.
Yvonne, any news on Crossing Gorn this month?
Is Yvonne here?
Yep, she's
No.
here.
Oh,
Yeah.
My gosh, Yvonne.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm assuming she had to step away for a minute, so.
Yes.
I'll check in with her.
So let's table that.
I have one other thing to share about crossing guards. That map that Mary Ellen created, I have a meeting next week with the SPS GIS team to hopefully develop that into a GIS web app. So that's super exciting. That would be really cool to get that taken on. So I'll keep you posted.
What's GIS?
Geographic information system. It's basically like a mapping software tool that would be, rather than like a PDF version, so like a file document, it would be a more live interactive application that would update all of our information on the crossing guard vacancies and positions that are filled. If anyone has more to add, I think that's
I think
covered it.
in a sense, it's going to be less of a just flat document and more like what you see when you go to a website, like to Google Maps or something. So it's like a map that you could manipulate versus just like a document. Yeah. So let's table the other news from Yvonne until she comes back. And we could move to SDOT update.
Yeah, a few things. First off, Earth Day is sort of around.
Leanne?
Yeah.
I think Marnie has something.
Hi,
Oh, okay.
so sorry. I had to step out for a minute. Did we talk about the stop paddle camera project? So
No.
Natalie Walton Anderson, who was our kind of key person, got things catalyzed. She's actually leaving Seattle City Attorney's Office March 1st. However, things are well underway. I think we're very confident that things will be in place by September of 2024. So just to let you know that.
That's great news. Thank you.
And that's the bus paddle situation?
That's right. That's authorizing, I mean, it's having a contract agreement with the city that includes police, that includes the city attorney's office or some, and that so that there's some way of both reviewing the citations and also assigning the penalty. So, yes.
Good.
Thank you. Any other updates from SBS? Okay.
I'm sorry, I have to take my mom to the hospital. I'm sorry, I have to leave. I don't have any updates. Goodbye.
Yvonne,
Who
take
was
care.
that?
That was Yvonne.
Oh,
Okay, who I believe is signing off. Yes, she signed off.
Yeah.
Then
Yes. So I wanted to remind everybody that Earth Day is around the corner. So there are probably events at schools. If not, you could help start an event. We have our Safe Routes to School packages. So Tier 1 schools are eligible to have 5 packages. These are supplies with prizes, encouragement supplies like stickers and reflectors, that sort of thing. supplies for bike buses, safety patrol. So schools are eligible for 3 to 5 packages depending on which tier they fall into. So a good time for schools to start applying for those. So just a little plug. And then additionally, I was curious to see if this group wanted to have a presentation from the Aurora Ave North project. So they're doing a corridor study right now. They developed draft concepts based off of community engagement that they've done. They hosted a series of design workshops and would like feedback. They're going to launch a public survey in March. So we have an opportunity to have a presentation from them at next meeting, if anybody is interested in that. So the closest schools that would be impacted are Eagle Staff and Cascadia. So was just curious about that. And then Sarah has some updates on some recent infrastructure improvements that we've done near schools.
Sorry, I missed my name there. Hi, everybody. I will share my screen. So we've touched on this project in the past. This is by Kimball Elementary. They opened their school building their new school building this past fall. And so starting with Ashley, this project has been in the works for a while now. This is the before, where you can see there's no crossing. The school building's right here. And then just recently, we got to install an RFB crossing with marked crosswalks and curb ramps. I'm going to go out there today to check it out and get some better pictures, but this gives you an idea. So we're excited about that. And then an upcoming project that I think a lot of people walk or drive or cross or bike on 3rd Avenue Northwest. And so I would highlight this one because you all might notice it when it goes out there. So this is the before of 3rd Ave Northwest. It goes further north. It goes right next to Greenwood Elementary. And this year, we should be able to get it in time to install crosswalks at many of the intersections between 67th and just past Greenwood Elementary. So that's 7 different intersections that will get marked crosswalks, and then also some paint and post curb ramps, or sorry, curb bulbs like this, to make that crossing distance shorter and to make people walking more visible when they're trying to cross the street. And putting in speed cushions, so physically slowing people driving down. So we're excited about it. We got a little article in my Ballard, so word is out. It's kind of exciting. That's all.
Great, and I'm seeing in the chat that folks are interested in the Aurora presentation if it can be relatively focused on school traffic related topics. So close to some of those crossings that students might use. That sounds good. Okay, thanks. That's all for SDOT.
Sorry, I was.
Noah, your mic's off.
Yeah, it seems like Noah's having a little bit of computer troubles. I can just say it looks like at 9:45, so we're a little early. It seems like folks are in the meeting though. We have a new design proposal on at Alki Elementary being presented by Brian. Brian, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, thank you.
Hi. Would you be ready to present now, or all the folks needed on the call?
Yep. Yeah, we're here. Yeah, we will probably take these extra 5 minutes. So, yeah, I'm Brian Fabella. I'm a capital projects manager. I've been working on the Alki Elementary School project. We actually presented to you all back in April of 2022. And I emailed those the meeting minutes to Noah yesterday, and I think to some others of you just for reference, because I was going through my information. With me today is Vince Gonzalez. He's also going to be presenting on the John Muir project, but he's our capital senior project manager, and he can help answer questions, district owner related. We also have Becky Hutchinson with Malum Architects. They are the prime architect on this project, and she will go into more about the permitting and the departures process, as well as the proposed design. And so, yeah, just real quick update, site work permits have been issued by SDCI already. In fact, this included abatement, demolition, and earthwork grading. So actually the main school facility has been demolished. The building permit has not yet been issued. That is on process because the departures process is not yet complete and resolved, and Becky will go more into detail about that. It's been paused since about November. So the contractor, the job site is secured. Temporary power has been set up. The contractor and SPS were regularly checking the site, but there are no construction activities taking place, and there is 24/7 security monitoring on site. And the school, the construction will resume when the departures process is complete. The SDCI will issue, they can finish issuing their process and issue the building permit. And we hope that will be happening soon. And I think with that, I'll just kick it over to Becky. Do I have the ability to share screen, or so that we can pull up the drawings, or I don't know, Becky, if you want to do that?
Yes, you could share your screen.
Becky, do you want to do that, or do you want me to do that?
Yeah, I'll share screen here, Brian. Thanks so much. Okay, make sure. Yep. Okay, great. Can everyone see our site plan? Great.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks for the introduction, Brian. So as he described, we are paused, our construction activities are paused, and that is because of the 9 departures that we submitted to the city. All were approved by the city, by SDCI, or granted, but all were also appealed. And during that appeal process, there was 1 departure that was remanded back to SDCI for reconsideration, and that was the departure for our parking quantity. The parking quantity for our schools is based off of assembly areas, and when calculating the new assembly areas at the new Alki, that yielded a requirement for 48 stalls. Given the nature of the site, which, as you see, and as shared the last time, or when we presented last to this committee, it's a 1.4 acre site, and with the best practices for how to use site area, both for educational programming in the school building as well as on the site. We had proposed not including any parking at this school location. That is the decision, or that proposal was remanded again by the hearings examiner. So what we have done, and the plan that you're seeing here is reconfigured the area in the southwest corner of the site, which was already a loading, kind of like a service zone for loading and unloading for building operations. And we have reconfigured that area to accommodate now 15 parking stalls.
Marilyn, can you mute yourself, please?
Thank you. And so the good news about this is that we did not need to change the design of the building, except for a little reconfiguration back here on account of having to move the electrical transformer out of the service yard and into here. So that created a reconfiguration of our long-term bike storage here and a little bit of reconfiguration of the preschool play area.
Starting off with Kieran.
A little reconfiguration of the preschool.
Can everybody be sat back here, please mute yourself? Thank you.
Thanks, guys. A little reconfiguration of the preschool play area, but we did not need to lose any educational programming. And we really just, worked with the school and school maintenance and operations to talk about what the most critical elements of, of the site were needed for their day-to-day. So I think we are, it's difficult that the project has had to pause and that the school will now be a year delayed in opening. So now our new opening date is fall of 2026. Yes, thank you, fall of 2026. And we know that in conversation with you and other, SBS leadership, that putting parking on site was not our, original proposal. And we know it actually goes against the best practice and recommendations of this committee, because this committee was in full support of the original proposal and not using site area for parking. And yet we feel like with the, concerns heard from the community, this is hopefully going to be seen as a, the district doing everything that we can to honor what we're hearing, and yet not sacrificing any of the, critical areas that support students and educational programming. So with that, and as Brian said, we are back, we have resubmitted to the city this proposal, and we are awaiting the city's ruling on this relative to the departure request. And this is how we hope to be proceeding forward once we are through this whole process. With that, can I answer any questions? Brian helped make this graphic clear, just to remind that this is still our bus loading unloading zone on 59th Avenue Southwest, and parent pickup and drop off happens adjacent to the playground just north of the school. And then these pink rectangles are actually indicating some exciting developments in the project, which is increased areas of improvement from the last time that we talked to this committee. And these improvements are being done in partnership with Seattle Parks and Rec. They will still be play areas. They just will be getting improved beyond the level that was originally proposed.
Thank you, Becky and Brian. Another committee has been quite concerned about the departure process and the time that it is taking. Do you have any estimate of the additional cost accrued by the departure process?
Vince and Brian, what I would cite is the estimate by our general contractor, which is $3 million. And that's just construction costs. That does not include legal fees that the district has been incurring, as well as additional design services they've had to pay to us to redesign the project and just extend all of our activities by a full year.
Okay.
No, I would just say that the meter's running, unfortunately, the longer it takes.
Right.
It's not good.
Yes. And I don't know who in that group was around for the beginning of the meeting, but just let you know that the committee is trying to be on top of it with both the city and our council members to make sure that the process is not stalling too much about land use code changes, that it will not happen in the future, or will minimize the risks. of stuff like that happen in the future. Mary Ellen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, as Noah said, we're continuing to push for a code change so that we can eliminate all of the most common departures. That's the goal of the code change, and it is in process. And it's really unfortunate that this happened, but this is a really good example of why we need this code change. So I'm wondering if you guys would be willing to just write up a little blurb about, you know, the 3 million in construction costs is very helpful, but we're also wondering, you know, what is the estimate for the redesign cost, the lawyer's cost? This is all coming out of money that was allocated several years prior, right? So the initial delay is a cost. How are you making up that cost lost to inflation? Where is that money coming from? If we could get, if you would be willing to send via email a little summary that totals all of the costs, we'd like to put that right in front of council members' faces so that they're aware that even when you guys do the whole process, you do the public outreach, you get all of the approvals all the way along, you know, one hearing examiner who's out of line with all of the previous decisions on all of the other schools can mean that, you know, SPS has to pay the $5 million, something like this, and students are stuck at the interim site for an extra year. These are real costs, and we shouldn't be having to do with this. So we'd really appreciate,
Mary Ellen,
example.
we have an ask of you also is
Yeah.
when the departures is out for appeal, which we anticipate could happen any day, any support or letters for this solution here would be greatly appreciated. And we do anticipate that the group will appeal it no matter what we do or whatever solution. And just having any letters of support that we could have as possibly part of a hearing, or letters to the director and support when this does become available would be greatly appreciated, because they tend to only get letters from the people that are against it and not in support of it.
Yeah. You would think, I mean, there's the whole public process to arrive at the departures decision. You'd think that might win more than the 8 people who challenged the decision, but
yeah.
But yes, absolutely, the committee could write a letter of support.
You know, if I could just say, because I just skipped over this talking point, but so that the committee has reassurance, in addition to all the other ways that the school has paid their consultants to follow up on the appeal, they also re-engaged the traffic engineer to go out and do another set of counts, because that was seemingly to be the cornerstone of the appellant's argument, not believing the initial report because counts were done at the end of COVID, or still during the time period when people were at home. Well, it was argued that that actually would make the counts more conservative because more cars are still at home. It just became a seed of mistrust in the data. So the traffic engineer went out, redid the counts, and basically validated, the projections he had made based off of the original counts. So it is why, the SDCI actually gave signals that we probably could have gone back in with a 0 parking count solution or proposal. But again, it was the district's, desire to show the community that we are trying, we are listening, here's the best we could do without sacrificing, again, those critical educational programs. Because the additional studies that the design team did showed that you cannot get more than 15 stalls without then taking away, for example, the preschool classrooms on the first floor and completely eliminating a whole program from the school site. So.
And actually, Becky, I'll just add, recently we enlisted another consultant, a third the Transpo group, to review the analysis that was done by the first consultant and reviewing all this. So we're paying to have just do more analysis.
Would you be willing to go into a bit more about this reconfiguration at the back of the school to explain what, how the 15 parking spots are getting squeezed in there?
It was a
And could you-
puzzle. Yeah.
Could you please include any compromises that you had to make in order to do
Oh,
that?
yeah.
That
Yeah.
you mentioned the
Yeah.
transformer and secondary
Yeah.
cabinets, but is there anything else?
Yeah. Yeah, actually there are. So let me remember, we wrote an extensive memo to be resubmitted to STCI with our departure, trying to outline those sacrifices. Moving the transformer was one because now it has increased length and increased cost for service to the building. Second was the loss of a dedicated on-site loading zone, so that SPS is now going to have to load, unload in the right of way, and that's for the daily food deliveries. The third is that back here, we actually had a dedicated preschool walkway that hugged the south property line. Right now, that has shifted up and it is now scooting, north along the building. So it's kind of this more common path of travel that also goes with these, serves egress from the building. So the preschoolers while they still have a safe route onto this campus and into their classrooms, they don't have a dedicated route that would have been more preschool-y designed for them. The preschool entry down, or the preschool play area down here, it was we lost a little bit of size from it, but we are still meeting agency requirements for size, and the reconfiguration I think is still very successful. It just needed to be redesigned. And I think beyond that, I think those are the primary points, unless Brian and Vince are remembering. Can we remember one more?
The only thing I will add is that some of the operations for our facilities partners, while this still works and they've signed off on this, the previous layout worked better for them, to be honest with you, with the day-to-day operations. So our operations had to sacrifice, and then our sensitive community, our preschool kids have had to sacrifice a little bit too, unknowingly.
That was it. It was, thank you. We used to have a loading platform so that the custodians would have a little bit of an elevated stage from which to dump their garbage. It was shared to us that that is the greatest source of L&I complaints, which is having to haul the dumpsters of the garbage overhead. And so we had a platform for them, but that's gone now.
I would just add, I think community wants us to try to add more parking, and if vehicular parking stalls on the site, and that would require losing early learning program here, which is, I know I'm preaching choir, it's absurd to lose educational early learning developmental programming for vehicles. The other options we analyzed and looked at, because it was brought up in comments, were actually condemning adjacent properties to put in parking, and we looked at, and to be able to provide the code required, we would have to take over the property immediately to the east, which is a single family residence, actually one of the appellants, ironically, and then the parcel to the south, which is a multi-family building. And so again, just all for vehicles.
And by taking over, you mean purchasing?
Condemning it. Yes, purchasing it. Yes. Yeah. I'm not sure how that process works, but it was suggested. I forgot. I think maybe by the hearing examiner to look at that, and I think there were some comments from the community about looking at that. We looked at also just if there were any parking lots in the city, like churches or anything that we could partner with to actually do like a shared parking. But there aren't any. I'm in West Isle. This is a very tight neighborhood. And to reiterate, we do not advocate for condemning and getting rid of residences for vehicle parking. So.
Just to be clear, make sure I'm understanding this. So you've managed to preserve all of the educational components on site. Access for the preschool is diminished. There's more expense for the utilities, but then the major trade-off is to the health and safety of school employees who are going to be loading and unloading without the dock, right? So we're trading private car storage for our employees' backs, essentially, right? Do I have that correct?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And dedicated on-site loading, unloading of deliveries that they're now going to be in the right of way.
Could you just talk briefly about how that right-of-way deliveries are going to work?
So this zone to the left of the school is already signed no parking because of the buses. So the deliveries are going to use that same bus zone just off hour from when the buses are there. And deliveries are actually very quick because they, it's just a, run the food in and then run back out to the truck. So SDOT had no concerns about that double use, but that is the plan. And again, this pathway will be their pathway, and their entry into the receiving zone is the same as previously designed right here. So they're traveling a little bit longer. But, yeah.
Marilyn, you have your head up? Marilyn, you're muted if you're.
It's no longer important that my question was answered.
Okay.
I just wanted to add that the deliveries occur off hours when drop off and pickup is occurring. So there's no conflict with deliveries and then parents. Again, we manage that through a schedule with our warehouse and delivery folks.
Mm-hmm. But the delivery trucks are not going to block the street, or they're going to use reserved.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
They usually arrive probably at this school somewhere between half an hour to 45 minutes before parents start to drop off and stuff.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Okay. Thank you so much. And we will definitely draft a letter of support of your proposal and make sure we have it to you. So hopefully this process could end at some point and the school could open.
Yeah, and we'll be reviewing our costs and analyze that so we can get some good data for you all for your
That would be great. Thank you.
That'd be great.
And I think we covered everything. I actually might have thought was going to need to request to come to the March agenda, but I don't know unless you have any other questions for us. Okay, and feel free, you can always email me.
One quick question, because I know another point of contention was about the bike parking. And the plan was always to partner with parks to ensure that there's the number of spaces. But I did see that you mentioned there's a reconfiguration of the indoor bike parking as a part of that. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yes, I can. No, the good news is that Parks has been a wonderful partner in all of that. We had to reconfigure the long-term storage on the south here, but we did not have to lose any stalls. And then up here, they are allowing us to place bike racks on the zone called the Parkway. And so we are meeting the full, I believe it's 104 bike stall count. We're just doing it in partnership with Parks, distributed between the north side of the school and the south side. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
And we may be able to get more bicycle parking in that parkway as we continue to work with Parks. They're interested to remove vehicular parking in that parkway, which is used, I think, off hours and weekends for that adjacent field, but they want to increase the pedestrian modality between as a three-way as an entrance into Schmitz Park. And that Malem's concept for that parkway was to be a front porch of the main entrance to the schools on the north side, close to the intersection of Stevens Way and 59th, where a lot of the families are crossing in and to access the school, and they're doing their pickup and drop off in that parkway area. So that's becoming sort of an exterior lobby, or I guess front porch is the concept and design of it. But yeah. So I just want to thank you all for your time, and thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you. If there are specific points, please nudge us about letters, support. You know, we definitely don't want to go through another round.
As soon as the appeal period starts, Mary Ellen, I'll email you and Noah so you'll know that it's out there on the street. We anticipate any day now from SDCI.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
We've been
everyone.
waiting since December, so hope it's any day.
Okay, and from Alki to another school, to John Muir Elementary. And I believe we have the team working on that on the call already.
Now, can we just establish like a subcommittee to write that letter of support so we're ready to go? I'm happy
Yeah,
to be on it.
sure. I'm sorry. I thought about, discussing it later and like looking at both schools. But yes, Mary Ellen, I think you would probably want to lead the letter writing effort. Okay, anybody else wants to join Mary Ellen? I'm happy to review.
I'm happy to review, yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to do it all by yourself. So Marilyn, it is Mary Ellen with Margaret and I supporting her. Okay. If there's no further discussion about that, we could move to the pre-K classroom edition.
Hi, good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, awesome. Hi, I'm Matisa Hollingsworth. I'm a project manager from Capital Projects. We also have Vince Gonzalez. He's a senior manager for our group here. And this is for the John Muir Early Learning Edition. It's a 4-classroom edition, and there are some interior renovations that are happening on the 3rd floor of the campus. Our architect is Angelique Grant Design. And our GCCM construction manager is Absher Construction. This project will be is set to start the summer of 2024. It's a year project, so the school will occupy the space in the fall of 2025. And thank you for allowing us to have this time to let you know about the project with us. Angelique, I guess we can turn it over to you.
Okay, I'll try to be brief so I can make best use of your time. I won't go over this. I think Matisa shared the overview. Let's see. All right. Not sure why I'm not, there we go. Okay. If you don't know the neighborhood, it's in Mount Baker. Whoops. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Just maybe start from the start.
If you don't know the neighborhood, it's in Mount Baker. It's mostly single family residential, but there's a MLK and the light rail corridor is to the west. Pretty hilly around here. I've heard from parents that a lot of them don't let their kids bike to school because of the hills. There is some traffic coming off of MLK and Rainier, but around the site itself is pretty quiet. And this is an overview of the school, if you're not familiar. So here in the front is where the early learning edition is happening. The existing building kind of hugs the corner here. And then all of the play area is in the back. The play area actually includes some parks property. So this is our site plan. We're enlarging the school here on the corner of 34th Avenue South and South Horton Street. A couple things to note in terms of sites, transportation and site safety. We are adding bicycle parking. We have, I think, 8 bike parking spots in the front of the school. Most of the new parking spots are in the back of the school here. That was a request from parents and teachers because there is bike theft in the front of the school. So they they advocated to have more of the bike parking in the back so it can be used for students. The front bike parking will be more for, parents with cargo bikes, things like that, where they'll kind of, lock up, drop their kids off. But most of the children coming to school, students coming to school, happens along 34th Avenue South. They tend to come in through the playground, and we've talked to the principal about allowing those kids to bring their bikes in. We are leaving the existing bus loading alone, and the only changes we're really making to the perimeter right-of-way are some curb ramp upgrades for ADA, and we're actually fixing, there's an existing ADA parking stall that's not actually ADA. So we're fixing that and adding a ramp in. And then the building itself is getting closer to the sidewalk. If you can see here, we cut the corner a little bit just to give kids a little bit more space away from that corner. I've heard from parents that there's an existing traffic circle there that's not loved. That's sort of out of our purview, but just for you to know, because it's hard sometimes for cars to get around it. So this is in case anyone's interested in the details. This is the civil sheet just showing, this new ADA parking stall, the curb ramp, the ADA curb ramps at the corners, a new ramp to serve this ADA parking. We are upgrading the loading and parking a little bit. We're adding a platform again for that, as Becky said, for district staff to be able to dump trash down into their containers. We will no longer be allowed to have direct drop-off, direct trash pickup over the right-of-way because that's not safe. And this will get fenced off, that the trash area will get fenced off. So we think that'll be a little bit of a safety upgrade. And okay, let's see. And then I can just share some views of the street corners. So this is existing from South Horton Street, showing the entry there to the school. So existing is above, proposed is below. From the corner of South Horton and 34th, again, existing is above, proposed is below. The entrance to the early learning addition, this is from the front of the school facing east. Existing is above and proposed is below. And then just a blow up floor plan of the area, existing on the left and then proposed on the right. So you can see that the play area, kind of curb and ramp situation, and the floor plan. This is a construction schedule. The construction will start over the summer and it will go until the 2020. I don't think I have the
2025.
Thank you. I'm used to looking
okay.
at my simple schedule. And then this is Absher Construction's laydown diagrams, just showing, they will have to fence around the early learning addition to get that construction to happen. So that's shown in this corner here. And then they will have some laydown, on 34th Avenue South. So just showing kind of some of the fencing that will happen there. So that is the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Mary Ellen?
Yeah. Did you say how many square feet the addition is?
It's about 5,000 square feet.
Okay, so that triggered a SIP then, correct?
It triggered a SIP and SEPA and departures.
Whew. Did you do full SIP or SIP light?
It was full SIP.
How did it go? Because that's one thing we've been monitoring is how SIP has been going. Schools has had some trouble getting through the SIP process.
Right.
So we're just
So
curious,
we're-
did
yeah.
they expect a timeline, that sort of thing.
We're at 60%. We have not submitted the 90% yet. That will happen pretty soon. So I think this month is the target date for that. I believe that we were originally hoping to do SIP Light, and then I'm not sure exactly what triggered the full SIP, but we were not allowed to do SIP Light. We're in full SIP. So they're a 60% review right now. Sarah's gonna chime
I was
in.
just gonna mention, we if we were limited to just the curb ramp installation, we would be at SIP Light based on the area. But we are doing we have some additional sidewalk removal and replacement, which pushes us over the areas for a SIP Light.
Thanks,
I'll just share that, what we have been coordinating with SDOT about some of these SIP difficulties, and yeah, that transition from 60% to 90%, I'm sure is where sometimes this goes south, and say, requirements for SIP can spiral from what was initially anticipated, which can lead to large delays. So if you start to see anything like that occurring, please do reach back out.
Okay.
SDOT made some changes to their process specifically geared towards getting schools through without delaying the process for schools. And so if that's working, we'd love to hear. And if it still needs more work, we'd love to hear that too.
Right. We did do our departures process. We did not have a parking departure, thankfully.
Yeah, so you didn't have to do a parking departure just to keep.
We
the
had
parking.
a lot coverage, setback, and bike parking departures. And the bike parking departure was not to reduce the amount, but basically to put more bikes in the back rather than the front.
Ah. Why is the requirement? So the requirement is not just about number, it's about location?
There's two kinds of bike parking. There's short-term and long-term, and short-term is required to be, by the front of the school. Long-term is covered. It has to be lit. Actually has more stringent requirements. So we have more long-term and fewer short-term. In effect, they'll be used for students coming to school. It's sort of more appropriate for all of that bike parking to be available for kids. But we just heard that the bikes have gotten stolen from the front of the school. So nobody wants to leave their bike there all day.
Would you be willing to write up a little paragraph describing exactly what happened to trigger the bike parking? Because this is something that the city is currently rewriting, and we want to make sure that you can write it in a way that makes sense for schools so that you're not doing the departures anyway.
Yeah, because it doesn't really make sense to have a departure for that. Because the way kids use bikes it's different, and it should be for them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if just putting it by the playground triggers a departure, that's no good. So we got to make sure the rewrite catches that. Yeah.
Just trying to understand the point here that I think Mary Ellen was making, the bike departure. The school is actually having kids come in and out of the back, right?
Correct.
Yeah. This is what's crazy, because there's plenty of schools who are using that parks or playground access field. That's actually the primary entrance in the morning or kids dismissal. Yeah, I think the code's not reflecting that in the print and how the building's actually being used. That's frustrating.
Yep.
Yeah. Unrelated question. How many kids are going to be served by the new addition?
It's an additional 40 children.
40. Okay, thank you.
40.
Mary Ellen, can I add on to your comments about the SIP? This project is very similar to our Leshai project, where the SIP came late after post bidding, and it added almost $300,000 of scope that had to be change ordered into that. So those type of things get me nervous, because I have a feeling
that makes me nervous.
I have a feeling that we will likely go out to bid with this with our GCCM partner, and probably the SIP will not be complete. And I'm sure our civil engineer will do their best to have everything assumed that will be in there, but we have had that where we've added extra scope that is post bid, and then we got change order pricing to deal with.
Vince, have you been seeing, you know, after we had those meetings with SDOT and they had talked about how they were going to have closer coordination with you guys, have you been seeing, you know, any change that gives you, you know, have you been seeing fruits of that it's seems like the information is better, or, you know, anything like that?
I probably need to talk to my teams a little bit more, but I could tell you that Mercer Middle School, which started construction in August, Montlake Middle School and John Rogers not Montlake Elementary School and John Rogers Elementary School also started in August. They still don't have their SIP permit. We are in February and they are still in 90%. So there's cost out there that we don't know that if they add something that was beyond what was bid out. Yeah. And those projects probably got bid out in May of last year. So, you know, I'm sure there's added scope that we have not seen yet.
We did have an interesting conversation with SDOT about the bus loading. We were originally thinking that we might upgrade the bus loading to make it more accessible, and we decided not to do that because we don't have to, because the solution they proposed was much less safe. It would have had buses parking, you know, sort of stopping in the right of way, which is already narrow. And we could imagine cars, frustrated parents or drivers just cutting around them with a blind view. And, you know, it would not have been good. So, you know, that was an interesting kind of, their solution didn't seem safe to us.
But you don't have to do the bus loading departure to keep it the same?
No, we're not changing the bus loading. We're not, we're just leaving it alone. It's outside of our project scope.
Yeah, but okay. Maybe it's not the number of students. The code is written to trigger a bus loading departure even when nothing's being changed, but maybe you're under the student threshold to trigger.
We
it.
might be, yeah.
And can you talk about SEPA? I'm curious about that one. You know, there have been some proposals at the state level to stop weaponizing supposed environmental reviews to block things like school construction. How has that process been?
We had an appeal. We just had our hearing. The focus was mostly on PFAS. So that, I don't know if you've heard about that, but the artificial turf that is used in preschool play, there was concerns that it should not have PFAS, it should not have rubber crumb. So the district has started requiring that those materials be certified as PFAS free. And also that we ask, additional thing for this time was we're going to ask for an HPD, which is a health product declaration, which might be a little bit new for the turf manufacturers. They already are used to doing the certificates that say PFAS free. The HPD might be something a little bit new for them. We don't use rubber crumb anymore for preschool. I mean, that hasn't been used in preschool play. Like, nobody does that. So that was a little bit of red herring. And then a lot of their data was based on sports fields, and they were advocating for natural grass instead of artificial turf, but you can't do that in preschool play. It's just not even permitted. So that was mostly the conversation.
I would just add, Mary Ellen, that the SEPA process is 100% complete now. The appeal was denied by the hearing examiner, and now we're moving on to the departure process, which they're ready to release their decision on departures, but they will not do that until our SEPA process is 100% complete. So now that it's complete, we're anticipating they will release their decision on the departures.
There is one other code element that has been less than clear, which is the process for tree removal. So that has been just I know SDCI is in the process of kind of rewriting the tree codes, but they haven't completed that process.
So actually, I'm an arborist and I work on this day in and day out.
Okay.
I spoke to the SDCI reviewers about this earlier this week. So if you want to connect offline, I'd be happy
Okay.
to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I've been asking them about it for about 6 months.
Yeah. Well, what they just told me, I have not understood why they have been so non-responsive. But when I finally talked to Paul Humphreys, he said because of the new requirements for permits for all sorts of tree removals on property that's not undergoing development, they're just completely slammed.
Right.
And he's got hundreds of open permits at a time, and so they're just
Oh dear.
joking. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, that's good. Good to know.
Yep.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Well, thank you so very much for your time.
Thanks.
No, thank you for having us.
Yeah, and if there are any updates or if the committee could give it a letter of support for anything, please let us know.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Actually, is your
Okay, have a good one.
email on this thread? I want to make sure we
Yeah,
can.
should be. I'll type it in.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Well, that's really exciting. We had 2 schools reviews after, I believe it's been a year since we heard anything, particularly from Alka Elementary. So before we wrap up for today, we're 2 minutes before the end of the meeting. Anybody has anything else to add? Besides that gut-wrenching feeling that the code should really be changed by now, but that's just be me. Okay, well, have a great weekend, everybody. Our next meeting is in March and it's in person. And if anybody wants to grab coffee afterwards, it's always an opportunity to connect and it's always fun.
That sounds great, Noah. I'll be there.
I'll be there. See you in March.
Great, bye, see you in March.
Thank you. Bye.
I think.